All right, so right now we can log in as Alice, as Bob, and we can navigate to the profile page, but there's no distinguishing factor, right, that allows us to treat one versus another. Okay, so let's deal with that fact. What we'd like to be able to do is navigate. Our navigation mechanism should be that we can encode the ID of the person who logged in as part of the route. We can say that the path to this actually has a pattern, right? Has profile followed by some user ID placeholder. The colon there means that this is not literally user ID. It's a placeholder, right? That somewhere later on I'm going to be able to refer to it by name user ID. Okay, so that our routing mechanism, our router controller, the one in the center of that over there, right? It's going to parse this path, is going to pattern match, and it's going to, if there's something after the profile, it'll create a map, right, of values or parameters that can then be retrieved by name user ID. Okay, and then we can then do one or another thing, display either Alice's information or Bob's information. All right, so we have that. Notice that now we broke it. We can't navigate anymore, even if I type in the right username and password, because I'm trying to navigate to the profile, right? But there is no mapping for the profile anymore, right? If I go back to the login component and I hardcode something there, then it will work, right? If I log in as Alice, notice that it goes to profile /123, okay, which happens to be Alice's ID. But if I log in as Bob, I'll still go to profile /123, right? Instead, I want to use their actual IDs, right? So let's do that. And so we have the user here, and we have the ID right there, right? So we can use it either by concatenating it here, user._ID, but when we always work with concatenation, it's always error prone, right? We can make an error very, very easily. So instead, that's why this was an array to start with, right? We can say comma, then we can say user._ID, right? It will concatenate it and build the path for you, right? So now, if how can I stop it? Now if I log in as Alice, it goes to profile 123. But if I log in as Bob, it goes to profile /234. Okay. Now we can tell them apart. In the profile, I need to be able to extract that ID and then display the correct user for that ID. And where is all that information? It's in the service. The server has all those IDs, right? It has all those users, right? So I just need to be able to extract that 234. So how do we do that? So in the profile component, which I don't have open, profile component, where are you? In the user.profile.component, okay? What we'd like to be able to do is that when this profile component is instantiated, or whenever we navigate to this component, when it's ever ready to be displayed, what I'd like to be able to do is parse, right, that path parameter from the query string, from the path, right? To do that, we're going to use another of our router friends here. Where is it? Oh, there it is. Activated route. We'd like to be notified that something happened in the route, right? Something interesting. The route changed. I want to know because I want to parse it. Okay? So activated route allows us to do just that. Allows us to be notified. We're going to inject it here, route, and this is an activated route. And once when the component is displayed, what we'd like to be able to do is we want to listen for changes on the route. Right? We're going to subscribe to changes on that route. If it changes, I want to be notified. Right? So to do that, we can use the route. Right? And the route has several things. It could have query parameters at the end. It could have several paths, parameters. We could do all sorts of things. Okay. In this case, what we want is the parameters, right, from the path, and that user ID was parsed by the activated route, right, and it creates a nice little map for us that we can then extract the value of that user ID. So that's all inside of the params. We're going to subscribe, and because we want to be notified of changes in the parameters in the route. Okay, and what we want to listen for are the values of the parameters, params, and we're going to want to invoke a function where we can parse the parameters out of here. So here's our params. This passes all the parameters that it parsed from the URL, and it's available in a map, right? By name, we can say is user ID. The user ID was parsed from there, which follows everything after /profile, right? Anything that follows after /profile, it's named the user ID, and we can parse it and store it maybe in a local variable, user ID, which we don't have. Let's declare it over here. Let's declare user ID as a string. And there it is. Now we have the user ID. And once we have the user ID, we can then maybe do an alert that indeed we are, the user ID is equal to this, this dot user ID. Right, let's just check. And if we go here, notice that, there we go. So if we go to this profile 234 and we refresh, notice that it comes up and pops up that, yep, so-and-so is logged in. If instead I type here 123, which is Alice, it pops up and extracts the 123 for Alice. That makes sense? Right? But we don't really want to do that. What we want to do is, knowing the ID, I want to fetch the person with that ID. Okay? Perhaps this user ID, we can use it now that it's here in the template. We could just render it, right? In the template for the HTML for the profile, we can say user ID. Let me just render it here, right? There it is, 123 or 234 or whatever, 345, whatever we pass here. It's arbitrary. Right now, it doesn't really mean anything to us. Right? It doesn't really mean anything to us. What we'd like to be able to do is find the user for that ID. Okay, that's really what we want to do. Okay, so let's do that. Now, to do that, we're going to be using the service. Right? We'll implement that in the service next.